Hi guys, it's Keke Love and Keke Loves You. Welcome and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So in the last video, I promised that I would do a video about good hair and its history and stuff like that. So that's what I'm giving you here. I started off on a tangent and I was like, it just needs to be its own thing. So this video in its entirety is actually a really good. I enjoyed creating it. I hope you all will enjoy consuming it. But in case you want to hop to certain parts, you're just curious, I'm about to give you the breakdown. So first we're going to talk about naps and its history. Then we're going to go into like the history of Black women's hair and good hair and things like that. Then I'm going to go into the manageability of it and its survival aspects. And then I'm going to cap it off with the hair and relationships, separating it between men and women. So let's hop right into it. Like, now this wasn't originally my breakdown, but I did want to take a second to talk about the N-word. You know, naps. Ah, yes, Key, the word nappy. Now for the definition of this one, I'm going to go to Webster. And it reads as follows: of hair, informal, plus sometimes offensive, naturally coarse, and tightly coiled. Now, this definition is good. Of course, it's the dictionary, but I'm going to refer to I'm going to refer to Michael Polio. Don't feel bad if I got it wrong. I butcher everybody's name. I try to be respectful, but sometimes it happens. Over at NPR for the definition on this one, and it reads as follows: the likely origin of the term is the word nap, which was used to describe the frizzled threadings raised from a piece of fabric. There's a lot of speculations that nap was redefined as a disparaging phrase for the coils and kinks in the hair of the African enslaved, in connection with the fields of cotton that drove the colonial economy. Now, I said the N-word because naps is actually like, I would say, the N-word. You know if you can say it or not. I'm not about to have this conversation with you. I think naps is to Black women what the N-word is to Black people. So just like with the N-word, there are some Black people that feel like we shouldn't be saying it. We shouldn't say it at all. There's no reason for us to say it. But then there's some Black people that are like, you know what, we can redeem it. Like, you know, we're going to say it. We're going to take it back. And we're going to say whatever we want to say. And we're going to say it and we're going to use it. And if you say it, you know, results might be what it is. Like, you might get hit in your throat. You might get jumped. You might get the teeth knocked out. All I'm saying is, you know the risk you run of saying it. I think the same thing goes for naps. There are some women who are okay with it, and there's some people that are like, nah, I wouldn't use that word at all. I think it's a terrible word. But mind you, there are women that are actually redeeming this word. There's a woman on YouTube here on Nappy Food TV. Now she has 4C hair, and she talks about what it's like to have her hair, and she talks about how to take care of your hair, how to do certain hairstyles and maintenance and things. Like she goes through and she goes in depth and she uses. So she's taking the word nap and nappy and all this, and she's taking it and she's reclaiming it, and she's been doing that for like 9 to 10 years. And she's been doing a great job. Now, she doesn't get as much recognition as she probably should be getting for it, but because she's a darker skinned Black woman with 4C hair, we know how that shit go. But she has been doing it, and she has been reclaiming that word. So I'm subscribed to her or whatever. And so I understand how some people are like, nah, historical context, and people use it as a racist term. Let's just dead it. But I also see how some people can be like, you know what? Actually, let's redeem it. Like, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna use it. It's whatever. The first thing I wanted to talk about was good hair in history. So a lot of people are talking about good hair and this concept, and they're like, why are we still talking about this? Haven't we grown out of this? Shouldn't we have grown out of that term? It was such a racist term. Well, not racist term. It was such a derogatory term, like, you know, and everything's like, why would you say that? So to give context to the whole good hair versus bad hair situation, we need to think back to around the time of Madam C.J. Walker. Now, hold on, Keith. Before we go to Madam C.J. Walker, we're going to have to go back a little bit further. I want to say a little bit further. I mean, like, the 1700s. So in 1763, back in Louisiana, under the governance of Esteban Rodriguez Miro, he passed what is known as the Tignon laws. So the Tignon laws were used to control African-American women's hair, in particular Creole women's hair. A lot of stuff had happened around back then or whatever, but I'll get to that in another video. Essentially what happened was these women were becoming competition for white women, and they wanted to make sure that these women knew their place. So they made them wear tignons, which are head wraps, to use to cover and to signify that they were not, you know, in fact, white women. You can see these in Beyonce and Jay-Z's Ape Shit video in the Louvre. And so those laws remained in place until 1801, basically until after the United States of America claimed that land. And then they said, nah, we done with this or whatever. But, you know, Black women continued to wear them in a sort of like rebellion, if you will. Then we go into Madam C.J. Walker in the 1890s to the 1900s. And while a lot of people associate her with straighten hair, she actually started into the business trying to use her wonderful hair grower because I believe she had some form of like psoriasis, so it was causing her hair to fall out. So she wanted to make it grow. And so then after that, when she went on to build her empire, you know, she did that all the way into the 1900s. Then you got all the styles that come after that, 1960s to the 70s and stuff like that. They had the afros associated with the Black Panthers, and then in the 1980s and the 1990s you got the Jerry curls. Sexy chocolate. You know, Black people have been experimenting with our hair for a long time, and there's just a lot of things that have brought us to where we are today. But let's go back to Madam C.J. Walker and why she's important to this conversation. Prior to that, or around that time, good hair was looked at not as a term to say that my hair was, you know, a certain hair was better than the other, but to say that a certain type of hair was more manageable than the other type of hair. So when we talk about the manageability, I might have just made a word up, but I'm gonna roll with it. So when we talk about that, we have to understand that that meant access to certain things. Madam C.J. Walker wasn't trying to make Black people assimilate to white society. She was trying to give Black women a chance at actually being able to make their own money and to be able to build themselves up. Now, I think this might have had to do with her upbringing and how she initially got her start in life. I'm not completely sure, but I do think it has to some degree to deal with how she lived her life and the things that may have happened to her early on in life. But she wanted to give Black women a chance, including herself, and the opportunity to get out here and make money and a good amount of it. And in order for you to be able to do that, to some degree, you're gonna have to assimilate, or you're gonna have to learn how to do these things. But then also for women to be seen a certain way and in certain lights and to be in certain spaces meant they had to do their hair to go in a certain way. So when people talk about code switching and stuff like this, now I'm like, yeah, that's child's play. Back then this meant survival. This was the way that women went to, and men, to be able to survive and to feed their children. So they had to assimilate however they had to in order to actually feed themselves and the people around them. There were no entrepreneurships in the ways in which it is now, and if they are, other people had to assimilate and then had to come back and patronize them to help them get their business off the ground, right? Which is a lot like what's going on today, but I feel like that's a different video. Manageable hair was the equivalent of survival during those times. How Black people were seen affected their everyday lives. This was the time of Jim Crow and Black codes. Back then, there were 3 things we needed as Black people in order to make progress, and those were connections, money, and marriage. For Black women, this could be difficult depending on how you're perceived. Afros were considered to be militant, some form due to the 1960s, and locks were seen as unclean, and the list could go on. Which is why people like Madam C.J. Walker and Annie Malone creating their products and systems were great help. Regardless of how we feel today, back then Black people needed to be seen as valuable members of society, and sometimes that meant assimilation, and that also affected who people deemed worthy of marriage. At the time, marriage for women was some form of security. While this was going on back then, we still deal with this today. A study done by the Perception Institute called Good Hair found that on average, white women showed explicit bias toward Black women's textured hair. They rated it as less beautiful, less sexy or attractive, and less professional than smooth hair. While we might not care about the first 2, the last one can affect your income. We are well aware of white women's influence in this world. All of the headlines, okay? Now, the Real Daytime Talk Show talked about the same study, and Lonnie shared how she couldn't book a commercial until she straightened her hair. It's such a prevalent subject that a woman at Western University did her dissertation on the subject, entitled CEOs Don't Wear Afros, exploring the justification, suppression of prejudice against Black women in the workplace. I'll make sure I link that in the description box below so that you can go read it if you feel like it. Now, the same institute mentioned another study done with some interesting finds. In 2016, Redmond and McLean measured Black men and Black women's explicit reaction to photos of celebrities. You know, famous people like Janet Jackson, Viola Davis, Solange Knowles, with their natural hair and smooth hairstyles. The study found overall the participants preferred smooth hair, but the Black women expressed no preference. Let's do the math. If they showed Black men and Black women the same things, and they said overall the participants preferred smooth hair, but Black women express no preference, what does that tell you? Black men prefer smooth hair. And this leads me to hair and relationships. Now, a little side note, if you want to hear more about this and its actual effects, I suggest you go look at this video by a woman named Leah Gordon here on YouTube. And she did it about texturism. So she's a darker skinned black woman, and she has a looser curl, and so she talked about like her experience in doing some research after she got a certain comment left on a video. I'll make sure I link that up in the cue cards and also in the description box in case it goes by too fast for you. I'm going to break these up into groups, men and then women. So first, let's talk about your dad and your brothers. Okay, how did they refer to your hair? Do something with her hair, nappy head little girl. No, there's a difference between something being playful and hateful, and you can hear a bad heart. But sometimes dads have been known to not do hair, right? Because they were not good at it or it was difficult, which is why Hair Love by Matthew Cherry was and is still a big deal, because dads have the ability to do hair. They just have to try. But with the ones we grew up having, results may vary. However, holistically, dads have just not been known to do hair. Now let's move on to your love interest. You heard the study that was in 2016. A year before that, Essence did a video called Asking Black Men How They Felt About Our Hair. One of them was like, am I in bed with AI? After finding out that she had cornrows under her weave. And one man was like, it just takes so long for her to wrap her hair up and just wants her to wake up like ta-da. But if you are natural, you know it takes way more time to put your hair up at night when you have a certain texture. And it's no tie-dye in the next morning, my guy. It's a lot of rollers, it's a lot of twists, plaits, it's a lot going on in the head, my guys. It's different. But then one of them said he loves his woman's hair to be flowy. And that told me and plenty of women in the comments exactly what he was looking for. Now, some of you may say, well, that was back then. But in 2019, Lil Duval made a tweet. I hate the big curly bushy hair look. I'm not saying stop wearing it, ladies. I personally just don't like it. I like every other style though, especially the straight hair look. But the big afro line shit, no can do. Now to mommy and you. Now all the information I've given you, mothers have had in mind. And they want to help you get into the best schools and so you can make good money and get a good man, because that's what they were taught. Lonnie and Remy Ma are probably of the same generation as some of our parents. While Remy Ma may have been called out for the way she talked about her and Lonnie's hair, they both grew up seeing how the world treated them because of it. So yes, they were taught to straighten their hair to be accepted by society and get a man. And yes, they raised us the same way they did, because they didn't know what to do their own hair. But we are supposed to be the change for our parents. Us growing up with the internet and having all these videos and all these forums, all the blogs, we're supposed to share what we have and what we've gained with our parents. Like I said in the last video, each one teach one. Alright guys, that is it. I hope you enjoyed the video. I enjoyed creating it for you all. Let me know if you like this content. I typically don't say this. If you've watched 1 or 2 videos, you already know I don't. But if you've learned something, if you want to contribute to the conversation in any way, feel free to drop it in the comment section. Leave a like on the video so I know you like this type of videos. I am considering doing more of like essay style videos. I do enjoy them and I love doing research, and I would love to share the information with other people that actually care to learn about stuff like this. So until next time, guys, know that Keke loves you, and I'm out. Peace.